Welcome to another lunchtime chat. Today's topic is how to become a timber faller. How does one go about this exactly? I have a bit of a list here. It's far from exhaustive, but if you guys are really interested and have some follow-up questions, I could probably do a follow-up video for that. But now I'm just going to try to cover the bulk of it, like the gist of it, how it actually comes to be, to get into this industry if you're interested in it. Or maybe you're just somebody that's wanting to do this on your property, etc., etc. There's lots of reasons to want to learn how to do this, or you know somebody that wants to do this, or maybe you just like learning about it. So whatever the case may be, let's just dive right in and assume that you actually want to be a timber faller. So you've decided you want to give it a go. You're ready. You're pumped. You're jacked. I'm going to be a faller. All right, let's do it. Okay, what has to happen now? Well, you got to have gear. So you got to have saws and wedges and axes. You got to have the right gear. So there's quite a list there. So that's one thing. But then to go along with that gear, of course, you got to have experience. And we'll talk about that in a minute. Let's just start with the next thing, kind of the must-haves here. So you got to be in good physical shape. This job is too hard to do if you're not in you don't have to be in amazing shape, but just decent physical shape, because there's a lot of walking, there's a lot of packing, a lot of hiking. So if you're good at that stuff and you're good at hiking, packing, all that type of stuff, there's a lot of that involved with this job. So and then as far as like having a bad knee or stuff like that, those are things that are really something you should consider if you're going to try to do this job, because you use your whole body in this job. So you're going to want to be just a pretty decent shape overall. I mean, if you've gained a few extra pounds over the winter or whatever, I'm not talking about that. That's no big deal. We all do that. And then you just burn that off running up and down the hills during the summer. I mean, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm just talking about like being physically able. So let's go to the next thing. Must be determined and have patience, perseverance, and longevity. And if you don't have these things, you are not going to make it. I'm going to tell you right now, because it takes quite a while to learn how to be proficient at timber falling. And that first 1 year is frustrating. The second year is frustrating. By the year 3, 4, you're starting to get where you're actually a pretty decent faller. Maybe you're still not where, real advanced, but you're starting to get proficient. 5 years, you're depending on the person, everybody's a little bit different. Everybody advances a little bit faster. But I can tell you one thing, you're not going to learn it all in a year. When I first came out here and I did my first year, it was horrible. It was awful. I wanted to quit every day. It just stuck in box, everything going sideways, or trees coming back on the bar, smashing the saw, smashing a bar. And that was my first year, and I was the son of a timber faller, and I thought it was in my blood. Well, it turns out I had to go through the school of hard knocks just like everybody else. So nobody's immune from that. You're going to go through, when you come in, you're going to go through that when you go out on your own. If you're working with a faller, it's not going to be so bad. But once you go out on your own, you're going to start getting into that, just learning all that stuff on your own and trying to apply all the things you've learned. And that's where the learning curve comes in. So yeah, that was on my list. We already talked about the break-in time being, kind of a long learning curve. Now, depending on the area you're learning in, it can be different. So some areas are easier than others. So, for example, if you're cutting in pretty much it's like small fir that's all pretty much the same size with decent ground, that type of cutting is going to be a lot easier than this type of cutting here on the coast, where you're dealing with redwood clumps and big differences in size, variation, differences in species, ground just kind of broken up and different things like that. So the area you start in will matter quite a bit. Some areas are a lot easier than others. For the coast here, it's one of the more difficult areas to fall timber. I'd say one of the more easier areas would be, say, inland, like Redding area, that type of thing, where they got more single species. That type of ground, decent ground. It definitely makes a difference in being easier to get started. So let's go to how to gain experience. Okay, so the best way is to work with an experienced faller. That's the best way to gain experience. It's pretty obvious, pretty self-explanatory. The problem is it's awfully hard to find somebody that's willing to break you in. I would say if you can get with somebody and convince them to break you in, if you can get good at bucking fast and you're not hung up in every buck, and you could actually get to be a good bucker relatively quick, that's going to matter a lot, because yes, you're going to still have to learn the falling part, but if you're not hung up in every buck and all that, and the faller's having to come wedge you out all the time, if you get past that quickly, which is much easier, that the bucking learning curve should be a lot quicker to get past than the falling learning curve. So get past that as fast as you can, so that you're generating money for that faller and for that timber company or that private landowner. Because at the end of the day, you know, this is a capitalist thing, and so if you got, even if a faller is getting paid by the hour, it's not going to look good when he's, you know, turning in all these hours for you and him, and the production's not there. Or if he gets getting paid scale, obviously he's not going to be too happy if he's having to wedge you out of every buck. So I think we hammered that point home. Get fast at bucking as fast as you can. Be proficient and efficient, and just try to learn as fast as you can and make it worthwhile for the person that's trying to train you. So let's go on. Oh, I already flipped the page. I was confused there for a minute. Okay. So a lot can be learned online as well. YouTube videos, different things like that. Some of you may know and some of you may not know, I did start an online timber falling school. It's right in the beginning process, so it's not what it's going to be, but it's getting there. And so unlike YouTube, where it's just simply watching somebody do something, the online school is going to be step by step showing you things, one step at a time, in detail. And so that's going to be the big difference between that and YouTube. Now I'm going to try to put a link here in the description if you want to go check that out. And if you're feeling real generous, you can join, or you can become I can't remember how it is. You can join for free, and if you become a member, it's $10 a month, which allows you access to everything. So I'm still getting used to the Locals platform. I might have got that backwards, I'm not sure. So I'll leave a link in the description if you're interested in that. Check it out. And yeah, directions will be in the description. All right, now moving on. I hate it when I get too much on my mind, and I'm probably trying to give you guys too much information at once, so I'm trying to move through here. Okay, so let's go here. You watch YouTube, you know, online you can learn. But the bottom line is, at the end of the day, you're gonna have to have that practice. So if you can't necessarily get with a faller or anything like that, try picking up a little private job for a landowner or something like that. Do it at a real cheap rate, you know, do a good job even though you're not going to make much money or anything like that. And that's just a big thing right there, is you're just not going. It's a kind of like an apprenticeship. And if you think you're going to come in and make all these big dollars like a regular faller in your first year or two, it's not. You don't have the experience. You don't have the ability yet. The kind of money that fallers make only comes if you have the abilities and skills to go with it. Somebody might pay you a day wage or something, but if you're out there and you don't have the skills and ability, they're not going to be happy and they're not going to call you back. You want to get that point where you have a reputation. It's a small pool of guys. You want a good reputation. So let's go to the next thing. All right. So yeah, it's a difficult journey getting to be a professional timber faller, but once you're there, you're there. It's just like becoming a plumber or an electrician or any of those types of professions. You got that learning curve, you got that break-in period, but once you're there and you're established and you got a name, you're in pretty good shape. You're then a timber faller. People know who you are. You're going to get work, even if work's, you know, a bad year like this year is not great, but you're still going to be working because you got a good name. You'll still get work, stuff like that. So that's very important, obviously. Let's talk a little bit about money and averages, because I can only give you averages. There's two ways to get paid: scale or hourly, or a day rate, which is basically the same thing. So scale is how much you cut. It's your rate. You get a rate per thousand board feet, and you times that rate by however many board feet you cut in that day, and that's what you get paid for that day. That's how per thousand works. Hourly, obviously, it's just self-explanatory. So there's two different ways. So you're most likely going to start out as an employee. So if you're actually proficient and good and whatnot, the employee rates between 50 on the lower end to $80 an hour on the higher end as an employee. Now, if you become a contractor, you get all your own insurances and all that stuff. It's about 100 to on the average end to 125, even more than that sometimes, depending. But I was just trying to give you an average hourly rate for an employee and then a contractor. So it kind of gives you an idea of where things are at. And rates have come up over the last few years. Right now, it seems like everything's a bit stagnant. Not seeing really any rate increases, probably because it's not a great year and the lumber markets aren't great. But that can, they can keep coming up with the changes, as the price of lumber rises, as the price of everything else rises, should come up some as well with that. Like I said, this year, not so much, but in the past. So let's just conclude by just saying, once you break in and go through all the stuff and you become a timber faller, it is a pretty rewarding job. There's a lot of good things about it. And I would just say, if you like this type, you gotta like this type of work, because it's too hard. It's too, all those things. If you're just coming in it thinking, I'm gonna make a bunch of money or something like that, if that's the thought process, then you're just not gonna want to be out here. You gotta, I don't say you gotta love it every day, but you gotta at least enjoy it to some extent, or you're just gonna hate your life and wish you'd never done it. And then you're gonna have spent all that money getting all the gear and whatnot, and nothing happened. So we go back to the perseverance and determination part. And if you have those things, you will eventually, and use all the methods and techniques from my videos, other guys' videos, the guy training you, you know, develop your own style, all that good stuff. Do that, you'll be a faller. It's not magic. Just like anything else, just practice, and you know, and practice makes perfect, as they say. So, all right, hope that helped. Let me know if you guys want to kind of follow up video if you got some more questions, but just tried to kind of give you the gist of it.